They divided it among themselves. And then they drank of it. There was more than one container. He took the bread, he brake it, he gave to them, saying, "This is my body. This do in remembrance of me." And the cup after supper, saying, "This is the New Testament in my blood." Now, let's focus on what's really taking place here. The Passover supper among the Jewish people, even to this day, is a very ceremonial supper. When they partake of the Passover, they do not eat the Passover like you and I eat Thanksgiving dinner. They do not eat the Passover like we eat Christmas dinner. What we do is we sit around the table, we say a prayer, and we begin to eat until we're full and can't eat no more. And then we get up feeling guilty for the rest of the day. After our nap, of course. That's not the way they eat the Passover. The Passover supper was a ceremony and a memorial of the Jewish people coming out of Egyptian bondage, and they do it in a very, very ceremonious way. There were 4 cups that were used in the eating of the Passover. I don't know exactly when the tradition started of the 4 cups. Some of them argued for 5 cups. I'll mention that in passing in a minute. But the 4 cups of the Passover, the idea started from Exodus chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. Let's take a look at that. Exodus 6, 6 and 7. "Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord." Now remember, the Passover does not start until about chapters 11 and 12. This was before the Exodus. This is during the plagues. This is Moses talking to Egypt while the plagues of Egypt are still going on. "Say, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage. And I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be given to you a God, or I will be to you a God. You shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians." If you have a Bible and are so inclined, you might want to take and make a pen note. Did you notice in that reading all of the "I wills" in that verse? Just in case you didn't, let's notice them. I will. He mentions that 5 times. 2 of those could be coupled together there at verse 7. "I will take for me a people, and I will be to you a God." That's really 1 point, but some have argued for 5 points. Each one of those "I will" statements taken out of that passage have been used by the Jewish people for the 4 cups of the Passover feast. Now look at those closely. "I will bring you out." 5 minutes. Okay. "I will rid you out of their bondage. I will redeem you. I will take to me for a people and will be to you a God." There is so much symbolism that is emphasizing the gospel in this particular, that it is amazing. "I will bring you out. I will rid you of bondage. I will redeem you." If you were to take those points and just make them into a label, you would have "I will bring you out," sanctification. "I will rid you of their bondage," the plagues of Egypt. "I will bring you out of Egypt with a strong arm." "I will redeem you." "I will accept you as my people." Let's look at those. These become the 4 cups of the Passover. There is what the Jews call, this is what the Jews call, and this was certainly set by the time of Jesus, and it still continues to this day. By the way, in the manuscripting of this back in 2001, I actually called a rabbi and talked to him from Savannah, one of the leading rabbis back in 2001 in Savannah at the synagogue. He thought I was crazy on the 1 cup issue, but we still had a good conversation. And he's right, it is a crazy idea, the 1 cup issue. But this is the Passover, according to the Jews. There was a round, it might be better to call this a round instead of a cup. There was a pouring to all the recipients at the Passover table. Cup number 1 was the cup of salvation, the cup of sanctification, Kadush. And you can see that even in Luke's account, when Luke talks about they began to eat, and that's when he says, "One of you this night will betray me." There was number 2, the cup of wrath, "I will deliver you." Do you think the cup of wrath, deliverance? Would know the deliverance was the plagues. "I will pour out the plagues." so what you've got is God pours out his cup of wrath. By the way, the second round of the Passover was not drunk by anybody. It's poured out as God's wrath is poured out. Now, in today's account, they may not pour it out on the table. They may take their finger or take a napkin and dip and then put it on their plate, sprinkle it out. But the point is, it's not drunk. It's played with. And then they pass that out. And that brings you to the third cup, which is called the cup of blessing, or the cup of redemption. Paul made mention of this in 1 Corinthians 10:16 when he says, the cup of blessing, which we bless, is it not the communion of the body of Christ? Or the blood of Christ? And he mentions it by name, the cup of blessing. The Jews would have perfectly understood, yes, that's the third cup of the Passover. That is the point. When they came to the third cup, at which Jesus began to institute the Lord's Supper. The Passover was still going on. But it's interesting, the Messiah did not drink of the last two cups. This cup of redemption was about to take place. And it really puts some meat on what Jesus was saying in Gethsemane. The second one there, the cup of wrath, many believe to be Gethsemane, when he said, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And this cup of blessing, he was fixing to fulfill. He was about to fulfill it on the cross. And then you have number 4, the cup of acceptance. It was said by the Jews of old, the Messiah would never drink from that cup. And then you have his very words, I will not drink any more of this fruit of the vine until I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. I'm telling you, the parallels are so obvious, it sends a chill down your spine. That this is the gospel held in the Passover. But when you see that it says Jesus took the cup, it's not a literal idea of he took a container and drank it and then gave them a slurp of it. That's not at all the idea. The idea was in the ceremony of the Passover, he took that third cup, that round. In fact, the cup of blessing was supposed to be, in Jewish tradition, filled to the brim. And if not careful, would spill out. With the idea of what David said in Psalm 23, my cup overflows. And that's the cup that was filled to the brim. And Jesus says, take this and divide it among yourselves in Luke's account. So what we have then is we have the cup of blessing and the cup of acceptance. And that acceptance, I will take you, you'll be my people, I will be your God. That is a covenant cup. And what that means is, quickly, this. The Jews have a tradition whenever the bridegroom is marrying the bride. They have a cup. The bridegroom and his family offers a cup of wine to the bride and her family. And the marriage ceremony is not consummated or finished until she drinks of that cup. And when she finally drinks in the ceremony and takes that sip of that cup, she is now his wife. And they become one flesh. And that's in the Passover, the way the Jews pictured the Messiah with his people. So when Jesus says, I will not drink of the fourth cup until I can receive you to myself, we have a beautiful picture of the gospel. And this beautiful picture of the gospel is ruined by the nonsense of one cup, to literalize it. Besides, that would be a double metonymy. A double metonymy would mean he told them to drink the cup, not literally, but the thing that's in the cup. That is the fruit of the vine. So that's a metonymy. But it would be a double metonymy because he didn't mean the cup, literally. He meant the round to the table. And so the idea of the one cup is just absurd. And it denigrates the beauty of the gospel message that's contained in the Lord's Supper. And there's much more to study. And it's not, sadly to say, in the text. But there's a little bit of this in the text. So I hope you enjoy it. It's time now to offer an invitation. If you're here this evening, this afternoon, as one who has not obeyed obey the gospel. There are many more beautiful symbols and much that God has done to clear a way for us to have salvation. God has loved us and has cherished us, and He wants you saved. You need to obey the gospel. Most of you here have probably obeyed the gospel. But you need to, when you read your text, read it with an open eye and pay close attention to every detail, because it matters. And even though you may have heard the verse 100 times, there are still things in there to study. You need to respond to heaven's invitation. Won't you come while we stand and sing?